I just put this right. Check one, two, semblance. Semblance. Good to go. Okay, cool. Everybody, my name is Jim Ousley. As Steven said, I'm a writer here in St. Louis, and welcome to Comics U. This is about self-publishing comics, and self-publishing is something that's very, very important to me. It's how I kind of got my start in comics, and I can't wait to tell you more about it. So before I do that, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Um, if it bores you, just throw a tomato if you indeed brought tomatoes. So my name is Jim Ousley. Like I said, I was born and raised here in St. Louis. I was a weird little kid. I lived in a neighborhood full of kind of like heavy metal dudes and tough chicks. And so when I started playing with ventriloquist dolls, it wasn't really welcomed really. But I was really I loved an old ventriloquist named Edgar Bergen. And so, for whatever reason, that gave me the impulse to perform. And I ended up performing at like little, not state, but county fairs. They paid me $20 to do my stupid act and then, shuffle me off. I did a couple of nun convents also. For some reason, the nuns dug the ventriloquist dummies. Why? I don't know. It's a mystery that remains with me to this day. And then as I got older, I was always a really shy, introverted kid. Like I would stutter when I would talk to people that I didn't know, and so I thought, well, I'll learn an instrument and join a band because that'll be easy, right? And that'll get me over my problem. And it did. I became a bass player and songwriter in a lot of bands here in St. Louis. Um, the less you know about those bands, the better for the most part, I have to say. So we'll just move past that. I wanted to try some other, I was always looking for a creative outlet that fit me, that I felt good about. And so I tried doing theater for a long time. And I genuinely love theater because it was another way to perform. And I'm not just a ham, but I'm a whole pig, as my mom would say. And I had a good time doing that. And then I kind of discovered the joy of writing. I kind of felt like it was the best way to express myself and kind of find my place in the world. And so I started writing for Playback STL, which was a music magazine here in St. Louis. And I would interview like famous musicians and I wrote reviews. Um, to be honest, I wrote a lot of reviews because I wanted free tickets to the show. Let's just be honest here. But it really gave me a good background and a good training in beginnings, middles, and ends, how to pace an article like a piece of music. And eventually that led to me doing an independent film with my close friend Oscar Madrid from Magic Smoky Monkey Theater called Hooch and Daddy-O, which you can see on Tubi. Um, yeah, and it's actually a really funny movie. Keegan Michael Key from Key and Peele was on a panel that voted the best screenplay, and so it was really it's a very cheap movie but very fun. So that basically led me to writing, and where I'm at now is there we go. It led to self-publishing, and self-publishing ultimately led me to writing for a publisher, which had been not always a dream, but it kind of became a dream, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. Just wanting to reach more people. But how did I get started? You may ask. Well, I'm asking, and I want to tell you. It's comics eventually became home for me. Am I doing this okay?
It's not showing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really.
Is it my big bulbous melon freak head getting in the way?
It's not. Let's try it now. There we go. Just use
Okay.
the left and right key. We should be good. That's what
Oh,
they use.
just the left right key. Oh, okay. So you guys couldn't see this before? Okay. So the guy in the picture is me. The ventriloquist dummies are right there in the upper top middle there. There's a theater masks and there's the Hooch and Daddy poster. Um, so yeah, I will. You guys see that? Yes. Okay. So yeah, so self-publishing became something that I needed to do once I felt like comics was home. These are a few of my books that I've had published. The one on the far right comes out in September is John Carpenter's Tales for Halloween Night. Horror is my favorite genre, and so I'm always happy to talk about horror stories whenever you like. So let me go to my next one here. So how comics became home. Out of all the things that I've tried, comics really do feel like home. I've met the nicest people. It's the strongest community that I've been a part of creatively. And how it happened was I joined a collective here in St. Louis called Ink and Drink Comics. Now, a lot of cities had this type of collective, but essentially what Ink and Drink Comics does is they put together artists with writers, and they all meet once a month at um, a, a big bar or restaurant, and they just people mingle and they pair off. And essentially, what happens is you find someone to work with on a story. And the great thing was, and what made me excited about Ink and Drink, was that they published two anthologies a year. And these are themed anthologies. So, like, the theme will be aliens for one graphic novel, or it'll be something else. And you write to that theme. And doing that was really exciting because it was the first time I had a story published. And if you've grown up loving comics and wanted to be a part of that world, there's really no better feeling than knowing that someone's going to be able to read your story, somebody that you don't even know. There's a real magic to that. And the power of that, for me anyway, um, I'll explain a little bit more later. But once I started contributing to more anthologies, um, I was kind of hungry to do more stories, more of my own stories. And so that meant going into self-publishing. Now, at Inktree, they take care of everything. They take care of like the printing and everything else. So stepping into self-publishing was a really big deal for me because I had to learn not only how to um, create a story and write a story and work with an artist to bring it to life, but I had to learn all the other stuff that may not be as fun to do. But I found a way to make it fun, and I hope that the ideas that I give to you guys may help if you want to self-publish your own stories. So yeah, I did self-publishing, and then I signed my first publishing contract about, I guess, 7 years ago, and I've just had more adventures since that time. So about Ink and Drink, if I may. Oops, do you see it? Sorry, guys. I don't want anybody to think that I don't know anything about computers, but I don't know anything about computers. So this button here, okay. Should I mark it with a highlighter so I know to press that button? Okay. So so why was Ink and Drink important to me? The community is probably the number one thing for me. Um, as someone who grew up, super shy, and then getting into different creative communities as I got older, the theater community was really great, and I still have a lot of friends there. Um, but there's some groups that break off. There's some cliques that happen. Same with the music community. In the comics community, I found from my own experience is that comics creators are so supportive of each other, and they happen to be very kind people. Some of the nicest people that I've ever experienced in my life, and that means a lot to me. And a big reason that means a lot to me is because in our current world right now, where there's so much friction and there's so much animosity and there's so much anger that seems so baseless, to be part of a community that feels the same things you do and has a similar worldview, that really means a lot. It means you're not alone. That's the big thing for me. Um, Knowledge was a very important part of working at Ink and Drink because I learned how to structure a short story. For whatever reason in my mind, I always had a fear about writing stories. So with Ink and Drink, when you first do a story for them, for your first time, they limit you to 4 pages. And I mean, how on earth do you write a story in only 4 pages that has a beginning, middle, and end? I couldn't wrap my hand around it. But from working with them and seeing other writers and artists show me what they were doing, I got it. It clicked for me, and I started to do it. The great thing about Ink and Drink is once you do one story, once you do your first one, you can do a longer story. And that's where the fun really begins. That's where it really began for me. Publishing. As I said earlier, having your book in a store, like I always went to Star Flipper when I was buying comics, and having a book that you have a story in Star Clipper or wherever is so exciting. That means someone that you don't even know can go into a store and potentially, read your story and enjoy it, get something out of it, whatever. Either way, when we all write stories, when we're creative, we're making someone's life better, in some way. We're either entertaining them or we're giving them something to relate to. And I think that's a real important thing. And I say this a lot, but um, if don't let anybody tell you that what you do isn't important in relation to comics and writing and being a creator, because it is. It's one of the most important things we have in this world. It's art is good for having a lot of people relate to the same thing. And when we relate to the same thing, we understand each other a little bit better. And that opens the door to empathy, which, in my viewpoint, we need a lot more of right now in the world. So never let anybody deride what you do as a creator. So promotion. Promotion is something that I was a bit used to in bands, but with comics, it's interesting with the band, people pay money and they see you and you perform. With comics, it's a very intimate thing. It's not performative. It's not something you can usually read out loud to somebody like a book, like do a reading. Comics are something that's very, and this is what I love about it, it's a very intimate experience. You read the dialogue or the story, and you're looking at the great art that goes with it. It's a really kind of magical and very unusual experience. And so promoting something like that is it could be a bit of a challenge at the start. But I do have some fun tips that'll hopefully help you in doing that that we'll get to a little bit later. And communication. This is a really big one because writers and artists sometimes can be very different people. That's been my experience. And it's great. That's what makes artists and writers work really good together. I found that it took me a few stories to kind of properly learn how to write scripts, express what I need to express, but give the artist something to go off of, but not too much, right? Because you don't want to tell them how to do their job. I much rather meet an artist halfway and have us collaborate. Collaboration to me is the best part of working in comics because you're not by yourself. You're working with someone who's very different from you, and you're creating something together that never existed before. And that's pretty cool. That's pretty fun. So we'll go to the next slide and I'll do my button. There we go. So self-publishing comics, the good, the bad, and the mildly frustrating. It's mostly good. There are some things you can fall into that you have to watch out for, which I'll also go into. And the frustration can come from pushing yourself too hard. That's what my frustration usually comes from. And there are ways to deal with that. And I will go into that as well. So self-publishing, it is really hard work, but it is completely worth it. There are things you've got to figure out though when you start self-publishing. Who is your audience? For example, like right now, my main audience is horror comics readers. And so I have to sort of like fit a lot of like podcasts that I do or advertising that I might do or that the publisher does towards a horror audience. Go where your audience is essentially. And it's important to do that because you can't just throw something out there anywhere and expect people to grab it and to find out about it. Should I partner up? In my experience, partnering up is great. And I don't mean just, obviously it's a writer and artist to partner up, but when I first started, like at Ink and Drink, I partnered up with my friend Oscar Madrid. We had worked on the Hooch and Daddy screenplay together, and I kind of wrangled him to work on comics with him. mostly because I liked hanging out with him and I just liked the experience. When I did our first self-published book, The Rough and Tumble, this book right here, I did that with him. We co-wrote it together. What was helpful about that is that it was our first step into self-publishing, and it was a way for us to share the responsibilities. And there's a lot of those. And we could also be a sounding board for each other in making the best book that we possibly could. And the big question with self-publishing, and I get asked about this more than anything when this topic comes up, is how do I pay for it? If you're like me, you're not a wealthy person, but you really want to put out a good book. So what I've had to do was go into crowdfunding. And but before we talk about crowdfunding, I mixed up my slides. So we'll go into how to attract your audience. I talked a little bit about that before, but what I would do is I would start small. So for me, Ink and Drink was starting small. You know, you start with a 4-page story, but if you don't have Ink and Drink where you live, like if you live in a different city or you move somewhere else that don't have things like this, there's other things you could do. You could go, if you're an artist, you can post on DeviantArt. There's plenty of sites you can go on to show your work to an audience so they can see it and start to enjoy what you do. Um, Engage with your community and network. So what I did was I started going to other comic shops in my area and talking to comic shop uh, workers and people that own comic shops just to get a sense of the world and try to like reach out more into that community. And by doing that, it really helped me when it was time to do like a crowdfunding thing because I could, work with them on doing promotional things or, anything of that nature. Any help you can get rather, is fantastic. And when you're doing your own book, that's just essential. You need really all the help you can get. And in this community, there's plenty of people who want to help. And that's one of the things that's wonderful about it. And the great thing about whether you're a writer or an artist, sometimes if you're a band or you're doing a theater show, like I remember doing Magic Smoking Monkey theater shows, and the shows didn't happen because you were ready. The shows happened because that was the time that the shows started. You know what I mean? So whether people were ready or not, you went out there and did it. The really great thing I love about writing, or artists, I'm sure about doing art, and comics in general, is that you don't have to show anything to anybody until you're ready for it. You know what I mean? So you can like, um, it's all about your comfort level. And because once you put something out, you'll want to engage with people. So, you know, just find your own comfort level with that and know that no one's forcing you to show your stuff yet. You're your own boss, you have your own deadlines. Just do it when you're ready. Make life easy for yourself and just keep it fun. That's a big part of it. Sharing the workload. I use these two fellows from Pulp Fiction because they're goofy, but they do work well together. Um, Removing all the hired assassin stuff, the great thing about working with a partner, like I did with my friend Oscar when I started out, was that you're sharing the workload. Um, it's a big thing you're stepping into when you self-publish, and it helps having a friend. Everything is better with a friend, and that's what worked for me. You may just like doing it on your own when you first start out, and that's great too. You know yourself better than anyone else does. So just choose the option that works best for you and your journey going forward. I keep on wanting to press the wrong button. There we go. So budgeting. So this plays into crowdfunding as well, but budgeting, mine for every project has been very, very different. And that's because different artists that I've worked with, they have different rates. You're always looking for a better printer to work with, someone who's cheaper. Um, Printing costs a lot right now, and it's probably going to get a little more expensive, and that will impact to some extent what you do for your budgeting. But what I try to keep in mind is even if those materials get more expensive, that just means that you'll need to reach more people who can help you and create something that they can enjoy and that you'll enjoy talking about for whatever the time promotional wise you choose to promote your book. So there we go. On to crowdfunding. So a lot of information that I give on a crowdfund. By the way, am I going too fast? Okay, cool. I just want to make sure. I tend to be a fast talker, so if I need to slow down, just tell me to slow down, and I'll be happy to. So crowdfunding, yeah, a lot of what I say about crowdfunding is true for self-publishing. For me, they're inextricable. They're tied in so close together because every project that I've done almost has been crowdfunded for the most part. There's several crowdfunding sites that you can go to. Indiegogo, for example, is a keep what you make proposition, which means basically that you have a campaign like you would for anything else. It ends at a certain time, but it's not an all or nothing kind of a thing. The money that you make from Indiegogo, you get to keep minus their 5% or whatever it is they charge for hosting your campaign. I prefer Kickstarter, and Kickstarter is a little more difficult because um, you have to reach your goal or you don't get any of the money, and you've got a certain amount of time to do it. Now, the reason why I choose that is for a really simple reason. My experience has been when people who you reach out to about your project to tell them that, hey, make this book, but I can't make it unless I get this amount that I budgeted for, and I've only got X amount of time to do it. So it creates a real sense of urgency because you're really passionate about making this project happen, but there's a ticking clock. And it's really important. I feel like I found when you explain this to people, whether it's friends, family, or readers who have purchased your material before, like it's I can't do it without you. And it gives your reader um, or your fan, whatever your friend, whatever you want to call it, call them. It gives them skin in the game because they want you to succeed. They want you to do really well. That's one thing that it took me a while to really realize, and once I did, it was incredible. The people that you put your work out to, that you expose your work to, they're on your side. They want you to succeed. There's a lot of folks doing crowdfunding. There's a lot of people self-publishing. So, you just want to be able to tell them that this can happen without them, and that you're the kind of artist or writer who will make it happen, that you will have something at the end of this campaign to send to them that they will enjoy. And that's why I choose Kickstarter for the most part. It's not for everyone, but that's just what's worked for me, the sense of urgency and the fact that it really includes your fan base or your readership into what you're doing. And I think they kind of enjoy that as well because they're rooting for you, like, oh man, you're almost there, you're almost there. That creates a fun synergy with them, I think. And I've always enjoyed that aspect of it. Um, there are some bad parts to that also that we'll get into, but they're things that are very workable, and I've got some workarounds that might be able to help you, and I hope they do. So this picture is a picture of the late Ed Brown, who was a lawyer. If you're not from St. Louis, you probably don't know who he is, but he was a lawyer here in town who wore an eye patch, and that was like his trademark. You know, I met him from doing a Smoky Monkey show, and I was trying to raise like private equity for a film, indie film I was doing. And someone said, "Hey, Ed Brown's out there. He's really into indie film. You should call him and try to get a meeting with him." So I did. I called his office the next morning, and he was the coolest guy in the world. We go to movies together. He was a big movie buff. The only mistake I made, and I'm not even joking about this, is he's got one eye. Okay, I bought tickets to a movie for both of us, and it was I think True Grit, and it was in 3D. So I swear to God that happened. And I said, you know what? Let's see something else. And he was really open to that. But anyway, he was a really cool guy. And so when it was time to promote our Kickstarter, I thought, man, it'd be really funny. It'd be really distasteful in a way, but it'd be really funny also to ask Ed if we could wear suits like him and wear eye patches Even as I describe this now, I'm cringing a little bit on the inside. But knowing he had a really good sense of humor, I asked him, and he was way into it. He was like, "Oh, that's great. Come over to the house. We'll do it in my basement." And so we did. And what's funny about his basement in the background, it looks like a mad scientist lab. If you look like in the old Universal movies, it's got the weird X in there. And what do those things do? Look, I didn't ask any questions. We just did the photo and left. But he was kind enough to do it. And this photo, as silly and goofy as it is, and the book itself was kind of a silly. It's an action comedy anthology, is what it was. But it fit the theme, and we got so much good feedback on it. And what ended up happening was we met with a PR person that we knew here in town, and her name's Kate Ewing, and she gave us some great ideas about how to promote our Kickstarter. One of the big things was, we all know about social media and how important it is to have a presence on there. I don't feel like I'm great at social media. Steens is amazing at social media. She is. Yeah, they are, and they do social media like nobody that I've seen except Gail Simone, who's another writer here in town. But I would look at what they would do and uh, and try to figure out how the best way to engage people on social media. I've gotten better at it, but a lot of times I just post stupid haikus. That's my comfort zone. Um, but the big thing with a self-publishing or a crowdfunding, either one, you've always really got to be promoting. And one of the fun things that Kate Ewing, when we spoke to her, what she brought up was going out in the real world and doing real world promotion. So what that meant was going to a comic shop and setting up a table. I mean, obviously you ask them, you don't just show up at the table, you know, but you ask the person who works at the comic shop, hey, would you mind if I came here and put up a table and maybe promoted this Kickstarter or this crowdfunding thing I'm working on because I'm really excited about this book and maybe we can sell it in your store and it'd be really helpful. And you'll promote that event and maybe that'll bring a few people in to buy some of their books too. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody. And the only thing it takes is asking someone. Just go in and ask the question. A lot of people don't think it's that simple. And I've told so many people, like they'll ask me, how did you get on Fox 2 News in the morning with your talk about a Kickstarter? And I was like, well, I asked. Some people really think, it's easy to forget that sometimes the simple way forward is the best way forward. And that's something else that we did. We actually, I contacted Fox 2 News in the morning, and I think at Channel 4's morning show as well. And I just asked them, hey, we're doing this Kickstarter. This is what it's about. This is the story, and we'd love to come on your show and promote it. And they've always said yes. You know, um, just being kind and respectful can go a long way. It really can. Um, those lessons your mom taught you, you know, they still stick. They work. So going beyond that, I'll give you the example of something else we did. So, promotion takes a lot of time. And when you do a crowdfunding thing, it's like self-publishing. You're kind of, as you're working on it, you're living it every day. And that sounds maybe not so fun, but the point is, or not the point, but the thing is, you have to make it fun for yourself since you'll be spending so much time doing it. So one of the things that we did, and this, I've not seen anyone do this before or since actually. So if anybody wants to take this idea, please do because it was super fun. We actually partnered with a restaurant on the south side called Onesto. That's an Italian restaurant, and we said, hey, I know this is a weird idea, but what if we, do set up a table at your restaurant in the lobby and maybe have a themed menu, and we make it an event or maybe a slow night that you have, and maybe we could help you get some people in, a few more people in, and we could maybe get some Kickstarter backers. And so we did, and they actually did a themed menu of our rough and tumble stories. And so this is too small for me to look to give you examples. Individual things themed to the story just for that night that we were there doing this. And again, all it took was saying, hey, do you think this is a fun idea? Would you mind doing this? It would really help us with our book that we're doing ourselves, and they were great about it. And it ended up being a lot of fun. It's really all about um, breaking out of the box what you think should be done, not expecting people just to automatically throw money at you. You want to earn their trust and share your passion about your stories with them, you know, and also just making bold choices about ways to reach people. And that was one of our, our bolder ones. And it could have been really dumb. We could have been in a lobby, I mean, twiddling our thumbs, picking our noses, nobody there. Like, what are these comic guys doing here? But it ended up being a really, really fun time. And it's actually one of my favorite little memories I have from self-publishing and doing this kind of stuff. So, so you talked about the pros. What about the cons? So there are a few things to remember, and they're not deal killers, I don't think, in any respect, but they're things that you want to, be cognizant of before you go into self-publishing and going on that adventure. Promotion, like I was just talking about before, it really is an enormous commitment. It really is. It takes a lot of time, and so if depending on what your mental health situation is, you want to be you want to make sure that you're healthy first, you know, before you spend a lot of time doing this. You want to spend time promoting, but you also want to be good to yourself. Um, and I also have people that I could look to for promoting to see how they do it. Again, Steens, I'm sorry I'm mentioning you again, but Steens, I feel, and I mean this respectfully, is a machine. I mean, when they promote something, they do it so well and it's so pointed. Um, and I love that. I anytime you can see passion, a lot of people the first time they see your passion is not from your work, but it's in you promoting your work. You know, and it does take a lot of time. My advice would be just to be careful and know your limitations and respect your world and your comfort level. Distribution. So working for a publisher, if you work for a publisher, they do all that kind of stuff. They take care of the distribution and dealing with the crazy diamond people, you know, who are mildly insane. Um, but when it's your distribution, it's up to you to contact comic shops, and when I would do that, I would go to and it was here in the St. Louis metropolitan area, suburbs and city. Um, you go in there and talk to the owners or talk to the people that work there. It's really important, and I bring this up because not that anybody here would do this, but I have seen this happen before where a creator might feel because they're so excited about it and they're so passionate about their project that they might feel a little bit of entitlement. And by that I mean comic shop says, well, I don't know, we don't really do local things, or this book really isn't for us. You can't take it personally, you know. For one thing, um, they're being honest with you and what they need for their comic shop, you know. Secondly, even if they have like what you perceive as a bad attitude, maybe, and I've rarely seen this, for folks that own comic shops. I mean, I've heard stories about Betty. It's important we don't get into it. I'm just joking. I'm just joking. I've only met Betty for the first time today, actually. Um, but you just have to respect that. But mostly, comic shop owners and people that work there are extraordinarily kind, and they want to help you. Again, people in the comics community, whether it's people who buy comics or want to create comics, they're on your side, and that's the best thing about working in the comics community. And that'll really help you once you really realize that, understand that when you self-publish. Upfront costs. So that goes back to crowdfunding and everything else, but you want to be cognizant of getting the best printing costs, but also making sure it's quality stuff. So when I was self-publishing my own stuff, I would usually work with like Print Ninja, they have distribution places here in the States, but I believe they're based in Japan. And they just offer really great quality for a fair price. I'm not, I don't work for them, so just so you know, I'm not like I don't have a patch with their name on it that I wear on my shirt. They're just who I personally had the best experiences with. I'm sure they're not the only one, but there's a lot of printers out there. It's just a matter of what your budget is and what kind of quality that you're willing to pay for, I guess. And also with artists. Now, this is a big thing. If you go on, there's like Facebook groups of artists and writers and creating comics, and where a, a writer will post something like, "Hey, I've got this great idea for a story. I think it could be pretty huge. I'd like to get an artist on board, and I don't have anything to pay you, but I'll pay you an exposure." That's artists don't like that very much. You know, I mean, the comments that come after something like that are pretty wild. It's a roller coaster, man. So when you work with an artist, you want to pay them a fair price, and a fair price is what they're asking. You know, you don't want to haggle with an artist. It's not a cattle auction. You want to make sure that you're paying them what they think they deserve. You know, um, I had something recently where there was an artist that I really loved his work. I mean, amazing work, and he told me how much he charges per page, and I was like, man, I'm sorry. Respectfully, I can't afford you. It's just so much money per page. And he was really cool about it. He said, no, I can come down. And I was like, no, I respectfully, I don't want you to come down. You know, you deserve. You're so good. You deserve that amount that you're asking for. I'm just mildly embarrassed that I can't pay you that amount. So, maybe we could work on something some other time. And I've become friends with him, and it's great, you know. But the whole point is respecting people who are part of the process. Respect is a big deal, you know. Writing art, not writing art, that didn't make any sense. I think the heat's getting to me, maybe. When being an artist is hard work, and there's all kinds of discussions about what's harder, writing or doing art. I don't know the answer to that. Writing for me personally is a joy, but it's very hard work for me. Your mileage may vary with everyone else, but respect is key when you're working with an artist for sure. So this is a big one for me. Don't forget that the most important part of your project is you, and mental health is a big deal. So I don't think I've ever really talked about this publicly, but I've got um, a massive and sometimes overwhelming issue with depression. It for a long time before I could find treatment for it, it was really wrecking my life and making me miserable. So working in art and working in comics helps that quite a bit. But I have experienced in the past where I'm working on a project, whether it's for a publisher or my own, or I'm working in crowdfunding, and I get so overwhelmed and I'm working so hard that I can feel myself break a little bit. And it's best to just take a step back and breathe and be cognizant of your humanity, and your limitations. I do that almost every project that I do. Not break, but be cognizant now of the need to walk away and know that you can come back to it the next day with a better frame of mind and probably better ideas because you're not banging your head against the wall. You know, you just have to take care of you. And the great thing about self-publishing is that there's no deadlines. You know what I mean? Except the ones you give to yourself. I always, recommend giving yourself deadlines just so that you can have markers to go by and make sure you finish something. You know, um, but don't make them deadlines that you put so much pressure on yourself that it ruins the fun of working on what you love so much. You know, um, and really, to me, out of all these slides, this one is the most important. You know, I'm actually working on a project now just to share this with you, and it took me a long time to get to this place where I've always got ideas, but I finally landed on the next one that I want to tell, the next series I want to work on that I'm excited about, and I've been working on finishing a script for the first issue actually that is handed in to my editor, and but leading up to it, the 2 weeks leading up to it were so awful, on a personal level, that I didn't think I would survive. So what I had to do was I had to walk away, and I'll give you some things that I do to help myself that maybe you already do, or maybe you don't, and maybe you might find some ideas to apply to your own life. So what I found recently was going for long walks. You know, I love walking now. Walking long distances or short distances, it does nothing for me physically. You know, clearly, but mentally, from a mental health perspective, it helps me immensely. I do it every day now. I try to walk like 3 miles a day, and again, it's just to clear my head and help me survive life. Life is hard, and art makes it better. But you have to find a way to navigate both in a way that's healthy. And so go on long walks. I hang out with my dog Maisie. She's the most photographed dog in the world, probably. My phone is mostly pictures of my dog. Her name is Maisie Ray Ousley. Ray R-E-Y, like Star Wars Ray. And this one is one of my favorite pictures of her. Um, every night, I take her for walks, of course, but every night we have a little scrap. She loves to scrap. She loves to fight me with her face and her teeth, So I pretend like she's, oh my gosh, are you trash talking me? All this kind of stuff, all this back and forth, and she loves it. And it makes her feel better, I'm sure, and it definitely makes me feel better. So that's one thing that I do. Um, I also speak to a good friend, which is obviously Cookie Monster isn't a real friend, but um, he was when I was a kid, and it really helps when you talk to a good friend. I also my family, my immediate family, my wife and my two sons. I depend on them also to talk to them, and we share things with each other. If we're having a bad day, if we're going through a rough time, we share that with each other, and it's something that I treasure in my life. It's what I'm that those things are my treasures, and I hope you can find something like that for yourself. That when you feel life is too much, when your project is becoming overwhelming, in whatever stage you happen to be in, that you could find something to make yourself feel better and to feel good about yourself in your place in all this. And like I was talking about earlier, it's very rare in life where you could be your own boss. Betty's her own boss. Emo from Emo's Pizza, he's his own boss. Um, it's the best thing in the world to be your own boss, and that's what self-publishing offers. Um, I did actually so during COVID, a lot of creative people had what they call COVID babies, where they had these projects that sprung up just to alleviate the boredom and to help other people survive it as well. My answer to that was not a comic at the time; it was writing a haiku book. Now, for people that know me on social media, I write really stupid haikus. There's no haiku that I've written that's worth a damn. You know what I mean? They're so dumb, but I really enjoy doing them, and it makes people smile. Um, I had one friend of mine who took the haiku book to a wake that she went to, and it was for an actor who passed away in town, who was quite young. And they were at the after thing that where there was dinner and everything else, and they started passing the book around and reading out the book, and they started like laughing, and that was the best feeling in the world. That's what you want, you know. You want to make people happy, You want to give people, you know, uh, entertainment or make happy, or give them something to think about to tell them that they're not alone. That the world, you can survive this world and indeed be happy in it. It is a possibility that's in reach. So this one was a little bit different. I didn't do a crowdfunding for this book. I actually brought a copy of it. This is the book. It's it's less a book than a pamphlet, really. But I call it a book. Damn it. Uh, so what I did was I took a lot of the haikus that I had written, that idiotic haikus, and I took photos to go to go with them, equally stupid photos that enhance the haiku experience. Um, and I put on social media, I was like, hey, you're familiar with my stupid haikus. I went ahead and wrote a book. I put a lot of them in the book. If you want to read them, PayPal me this, and I'll send it out to you. And I did, and a lot of people ordered it, and it's nothing that I'll do again. I mean, the world. I mean, believe me, the world is not waiting for. I wrote a haiku about it, volume two. They're just not. But it's a fun read. I call it a good toilet read. I mean, we all have those, and this is maybe one of them. But it was really fun, and it taught me that you know self-publishing can be a really pure experience. It could be a direct line from all the stuff that you're feeling in your head and your heart, and getting out to people. And if you can make a connection and make someone happy, the effort it takes to do self-publishing is worth it. It was certainly worth it for me, and I think it'd be worth it for you as well. And I think I'm at the end here, so you mind if I read you one of my haikus? Okay. Oh, you maniacs! So I can barely see this. Okay, so this is actually the message of this haiku is a good one. It's just written in my typical dumb fashion. It says, "Say Black Lives Matter. See, it isn't difficult, you racist dipshits." And so I wrote that after speaking to some family members, and I I dedicated that to them. So in conclusion, I wrote on the slide at conclusion, speak like French to make it sound more fancy, but basically what I'm saying is self-publishing comics really is for everyone. It's something, and I'm not being self-deprecating when I say this, but I can tell you, if I can do it, you can do it. If there's a story that you want to tell, you can do it. I'm telling you. And if you ever have any questions about it, you can feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to help. Um, Creators get incredible opportunities. So my self-publishing, like I said, led to me working with publishers. My whole thing with being creative is having adventures. Like a few years ago, I went to San Diego for the first time. I had always dreamt about going there, you know, and I see Steens go there, and it looked awesome. I was like, oh, this looks really cool. And I finally got to go. And if I didn't start self-publishing, I wouldn't have been able to go. So for me, it's all about life being short and having adventures. And self-publishing is a big doorway to that. Understand the process before you get into it. Talk to someone who has self-published the book before so they can help you. Again, my experience has told me that there's always someone who will help, and they're always happy to help. And I'm the same way. If you decide to self-publish something, again, feel free to reach out to me. Budget wisely. You don't want to be in a situation where you have this big plan, you put out this big book, and then it's time to pay the bills, and you're really short. You know, um, don't even put that pressure on yourself. Just make sure that you budget what you're paying for wisely, that you get ahead of it, and you know what you're getting into once you start. And again, you're your own boss. That's the one of the greatest things about self-publishing. And be good to yourself the whole way through. Being good to yourself is what it's all about. Because the better you are to yourself, the better you'll be for other people that want to read and enjoy your work. And thank you. Um, thank you. And just if you want to reach out to me, those are my social media guys on there.
All right. That's pretty good, right? Yeah, I think so. All right. I'm gonna if you could close
Oh
this.
yeah, sorry.
Yeah, just
Yep.
so that they can see me. We can put the lights back on too. Yeah. Thanks, Betty. Okay.
Sorry about the button thing, guys. I mean, these buttons they look so similar. It's hard.
We're easy here. It's all good.
Easy like Sunday morning.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you so much for talking to us about self-publishing.
Yeah.
I've got some questions for you.
Okay.
And remember, guys, I'd love for you to have some questions too. So while I'm asking questions, you should be thinking about what your questions will be. Sound good? Excellent. Okay, so you were talking about how these opportunities started showing up the more that you did self-publishing. What are some of the other publishers that you've been able to work with?
I've worked with Red 5 Comics. That's the publisher that I've worked with most. They're a Houston-based publisher, um, and really supportive. They pretty much let me write what I want. They allowed me to hire my own editor, which is a process I really enjoy. I didn't say this before, and I really feel bad about it, but I want to say something about Jason Green.
Oh yeah.
So going back to Ink and Drink real quick, um, Steve Higgins, Jason Green, and Carlos Gabriel Ruiz are the three editors at Ink and Drink, and they were always so incredibly supportive. They're all friends of mine. Jason Green has become my editor over the years, and everything that I do now, Jason Green edits, and he's a spectacular editor. He's honest. He's a story-driven editor, which means if something in the story isn't quite lining up, he'll tell you about it. He may even offer suggestions. And he's very, very, he keeps the emotion out of it. And I love criticism. I really do because I know it makes me better. You know, Whenever someone gives me notes, I say, "Give me all the notes. Give me all of them. I love it." And that's why I love Jason so much. And my relationship with him is great. To me, he's um, indispensable. He's amazing.
Yeah, it's always great to have a really great editor in your back pocket.
Yeah.
Um,
I didn't answer your question, did I?
you started it.
Oh, I did. Okay. Okay. This is,
Comics.
Red 5 Comics, yeah. And I just recently started working with Storm King Comics, which is John Carpenter, who's a filmmaker. I don't know if you've heard of him before, but he is well, maybe, I don't know. I don't know. Some people may have. But I grew up a big fan of his, and they accepted the story that I wrote, and I'm writing another one for them now. And they are really great because, like with Red 5, I get paid in royalties, after the book comes out. With Storm King, they pay you up front, and it's fantastic. It's really, really nice. And they pay a great wage for artists, and they're a really great company to work for as well. Um, but yeah, I mean, working with those guys has been great because growing up, I was such a huge fan of John Carpenter's, and it's such a thrill to be writing a story for one of his books, you know. Look, I'm a dork. It means a lot to me. Okay.
No, I feel the same way. I got an opportunity to write a Unico comic for the Tezuka company. So they do like Astro Boy and that sort of
Yeah.
thing. And I grew up watching that, so I was like, "This is the best experience of my life. It's never gonna get any better than this."
Isn't that like just the greatest feeling?
It's
Because
great.
you're right in touch with that little kid, and
Yeah,
you're just high-fiving your 10-year-old self, like, yeah, man,
you did it.
yeah.
Some people think that it is actually harder for a writer to get a job in comics because with artists, you have your profile and you can just very clearly visually see the kind of work that they do. Meanwhile, with writers, you have to devote the time to actually read work. So would you say that it's harder or would you just say it's different?
I just think it's different.
Mm.
I really do because um, when I've worked with publishers or tried to pitch something, um, I'm pitching the concept. I'm pitching the story. Um, and before I do that, I usually work with an artist, to give a visual representation on some level of what I'm talking about. But that's an internal question, who has it harder, artists or writers, and who is it more difficult for? And I really do think it's different.
Yeah,
I really do.
that's good. Good to know that
Yeah.
it's not extra difficult. Um, so I know that a lot of people who are interested in self-publishing, oftentimes they're doing it whilst also doing something else, a day job, something that pays the bills. Do you have that situation as well?
I do,
Hmm.
yes. So I'm no longer a dancer, as you may have read about, I'm sure. No, I do have a day job. I'm married and I've got two sons that I love very much, and I just want to make sure that I'm a good dad and a good husband. I want to make sure that they're taken care of. Um, but having a day job and working in the industry is a big challenge for me, and it's all about being disciplined with your time,
Mhm.
being able to carve out time and commit that time to just having that tunnel vision, that focus to write your story or draw your page or whatever it is that you individually do. It's not easy. I know I have a lot of friends who have tried to have a creative life along with their day job life, and it's really difficult for them. And a lot of them um, aren't able to do it, and I understand that, you know. But the secret really is time management and the discipline just to commit yourself to your work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't mean to make it sound easy because it's not. But
Discipline is not easy.
right,
No, I can convince myself of anything.
yeah,
It's too late at night. I couldn't possibly do any work. All
yeah.
sorts of reasons can come up.
Well, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who's a writer actress, she says that writing is 90% um, delaying, procrastinating, and it's 10% doing writing.
Yeah.
That is so accurate. It's so accurate because I'm like you. It's like it'll be late at night, and I know I should be writing, but I'll think, man, there's an episode of Columbo on that I've seen 20 times. I really want to see it again because that's my comfort food. So it is a challenge, and
Yeah.
I struggle with that. I think everybody struggles with it to some extent, but yeah,
Yeah. And it's like no one likes it to be a challenge, but it is nice that everyone is going through these similar challenges.
yeah,
When I was working at a publisher and also doing the graphic novel, I had to dedicate, 4 hours a day after work or work till midnight. So it's like you can find ways to make it work for you.
yeah.
But juggling jobs is just it's kind of a part of the comics industry.
Hmm.
That's just how it is.
Yeah.
Speaking of getting jobs, though, are you agented? And if not, why? And if so, why?
Well, I'm not agented at this point. Um, I've had people tell me that I need to get one, and I haven't. And I think I think part of that is because um, right now I like how I'm managing the stuff for myself. It's at a comfort level um, that I like right now. I'm able to challenge myself, and right now I just don't want um, an extra, you know, head in there, an
Yeah.
extra pair of hands. I think after my next series after I finish that one, I actually may start um, looking for an agent, mostly because I want to widen my scope of things that I work on. You know, I had a really great experience. If I'm going to far off a tangent, um, so I've been working over the past year and a half with a director. There's a movie called Studio 666. It's a Foo Fighters movie. It's a Foo Fighters horror movie they did over COVID. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's a horror comedy. It's really fun. But the guy that directed that reached out to me about working on an idea that he had for a screenplay. So I wrote that for him. And we might make it into a comic series. But I would love to have more opportunities like that, just because I would I think it's a really unique challenge to have someone say, "Hey, I've got an idea. Can you write it?"
Mm.
It really puts you out of your comfort zone, and yeah, it's fun. It keeps things exciting. You
Yeah.
know.
And I think there's value to having an agent as well. I think it just kind of depends on the kind of work you want to do. If you're perfectly happy putting out your own work and, uh, getting it expanded and getting people to look at it and you're a-okay with how things are going, great. You don't really need an agent. But if you want to get into, say, like books with Scholastic, Macmillan, HarperCollins, usually those companies won't even look at you unless you have an agent. So it really depends. How do you want to make your way through this industry? Do you want to go for those bigger publishers, or do you want to stick with smaller publishers, or do you want to self-publish? You have a lot of options.
Hmm.
When you're looking for a collaborator, especially someone who shares the load, because you definitely talked about that, it's a group effort.
Yeah.
How are you finding those creators? Like, what are your first steps? Do you based it off of a story that you already have in mind? Are you just reaching out to artists and being like, what kind of story do you want to draw? Maybe you work with me and we do it. How do you handle all of that?
For me, the process is usually I've got a story that I really want to tell, and I had that set, what the story is, what the concept of the story is, and who the characters are. When I approach an artist, um, I'll just say, hey, this is a story that I want to do. Is this something that excites you?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Is this something you like? Is this something that you think you'd want to collaborate on and add something to? And I'm not the kind of person who says to an artist, no, 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 sorry, the head's not that big, or not blue, gray. You know what I mean? I don't get involved with them on that minutia. For me, I want us to surprise each other.
Yeah.
You know, and I get a lot of joy from that. So the story will start with me usually, well always, but then I look for an artist who feels like they can relate to it and can add something to it, add their own style to it, and yeah.
I think that's a good way to do it. As an artist, I say that's the best way to do it, actually.
Yeah.
Unless you have fat stacks. In that case, we can do whatever you want. But it does help a lot. My first book with Ivy Noel Weir, who will be another professor later in this semester, um, uh, she reached out to me first and was like, what do you think of the story? And I said, this is great. I'd love to do this. And then just recently, I had an idea for a story, but I didn't want to write it.
Uh,
So I was like, Ivy, what do you think of this story? And she was like, I love to write something like this. So sometimes it's just a matter of speaking to each other. What do you want to do? What do we want to do?
right. Yeah.
When you are talking about the actual like budgeting and whatnot, you did say start small. What does small really mean in terms of like money with like Kickstarter? So like if somebody wanted to start one.
Okay. Well, this probably goes back to how I'm not good at slides. But what I was talking about, like start small. I think when you do a crowdfunding thing, it's hard to kind of picture it that way. What I was when I say start small, I kind of mean just like maybe not starting off with the crowdfunding thing at first.
Mm.
Just finding ways to get your work out there in smaller ways. I mean, social media can be really rough. But the great thing about it is it allows you so many opportunities to reach people on a level that we wouldn't have been able to before social media. So um, if you're an artist, maybe just a few drawings or few pieces that you want to test the waters with. You know, um, if you're a writer, there's Wix, there's Squarespace, there's sites you could use to have a blog maybe to show off that you can actually put a story together, and work with words. Um, so by starting small, that's the kind of thing that I would recommend doing, because I think the more you do that kind of stuff, the more you build your confidence,
Hmm.
and so much of this is a confidence game. Really, you it's all about building your confidence. And the more confidence you have, I think the better you become at what you do because you've got that sort of wind behind you, helping to push you along. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So.
So if this you've never made a comic before, don't start with Kickstarter. Start with like start with a zine, perhaps, a one-page zine. See if you can do that. And then after that, maybe you can do a six-page comic and you can print that at your local FedEx office. And then after that, you might be able to do a 25-page comic and go to InkSpot or the Done department. And so the more you do, the better you're going to be at it so that by the time you're like, okay, I want to do like a full 150-page book, perfect bound, French flaps, all that cool stuff, you'll have had the experience before you get right into it. So,
Yeah.
good idea.
And
Start small.
that's a great point too about the zines because I don't have any experience with zines,
Mm.
so that's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think zines are a great way to start. I mean, that's what I teach my students is actually my students start with one panel comics, so even smaller,
Well, that's great though.
Um, you were also talking about, confidence and how it shows, not just in your work. I feel like there are some people who have a bit of stage fright. and they want to talk about their comic, but they're not sure where to even begin with
Yeah,
that. Do you have any advice for some of our shyer creators?
I do. I actually still have a bit of a phobia about public speaking, believe it or not. So when I was doing in bands, I was it's true. I see you, buddy. Well, I was, I've acted with Rob, my friend Rob back there in shows. Um, when I was doing theater, it was never a problem. If I was in a band, it wasn't a problem. If I was talking to people as myself, it was a problem, man. You know. And so when I started doing conventions, like I started doing those with Think and Drink, and I quickly realized that you know you want to sell your book, and more importantly than selling it, you just want to get it into the hands of people who can enjoy it. The more people that have your book, I mean that's so magic. You're giving people something to enjoy, and I want a lot of people to enjoy it. And so I had no choice but to start engaging with people at conventions. And the great thing I found, this goes right back to community and how great the comics community is. I find that 9 times out of 10, people are responsive. So I could tell you what I do, and I do this all the time. I do it over and over again. This is like my line. I'll be like, "Hey, can I show my new book?" And they'll just be friendly and say hi, and they'll usually come over and you can tell them about your book, and if they haven't heard of you or whatever. And that helped me quite a bit. I think for me, it was a matter of finding that thing to say that you could engage people with, that works for you, because the same thing is not going to work for everyone. You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, so yeah, that's kind of what I did.
Do it scared is the idea. Do it scared.
Yeah.
That's really interesting that that's like your line, because my line at a show is good morning. It is surprisingly works very well. People are like, did you just say good morning to me? Hi, I guess. I'm at a Comic Con. I don't expect people to be cheerful at me. I don't even talk about the comic. And I'm just, how's it going?
Yeah.
How's the con going? Anything cool? And
Right.
then just them being here and like having a good experience, they'll start to look at your table and say, well, what do you got? This way I don't have to say, here's what I got. They ask me, what do you have? So
I
give
you
them a
know
try.
on that same subject, actually, I'll tell you one of the best things about going to conventions and working at conventions is occasionally you get someone who comes to your table who is very awkward. You can tell they don't have a lot of people to talk to, and they're going to this convention because this is their tribe. They feel comfortable here. They can dress up here. They can be whatever they want here. And even if they don't necessarily want to talk to you about your work or or have them sign your book, what's great is that they just have someone to talk to. I've had guys come up telling me who that they just bought this Power Rangers art book, and they want to tell me all about the Power Rangers. And honestly, I love it because I grew up, um, again, very shy, very quiet. I was bullied. I hate bullies. So if you could be somebody for somebody, if you could be a friend for someone that you don't know, that's what working at these conventions gives you the opportunity to do. You know, and it fills your heart up. I hope that doesn't sound corny. It's genuine. I mean, I love doing it. I did talk to a guy, Days of the Dead in Chicago, um, who after I was talking to him for a while, he was dressed kind of like the Riddler from the Batman movie, with the goggles and everything else. Um, and he was talking about, yeah, I like to do things and go out and have my own. I kind of follow my own path, and of course I do that because I'm an alien. And then I said, sorry. They said, yeah, I'm an alien. And what's funny is that I'm an alien. The reason why I have a hearing problem is because of the experiments that we did with the new machine. And he was going over this whole like story, and I was like, okay, you know,
Word.
yeah, that's fine. I mean, if you're expressing the story, maybe it's a way that he tells his story. He doesn't self-publish. He goes with people and goes into this thing. Great. Let me hear it. I'd love to hear it.
That's great. So we got talking about conventions and really tabling, and that's a great way to get your work out there. Besides, going to comic book stores and working with others. If you're looking for a place to table, Slice is coming up, and applications are open. They will close in July, so you might as well just apply tonight. Seriously though, like Slice is a really great place for like your first tabling experience because it is a smaller con. It is a 1 day con, so you're not like tied to having to be there for 2 days in a row, which can be a lot. So if you're thinking about it, I suggest it.
Yeah, I actually was there last year, and I told Brendan this actually when we were done, that it was the best convention experience I ever had. And the reason for that was it was just comics and zine focused, and you meet so many different people there. You meet trans folks, gay folks, all kinds of creators, uh, all kinds of colors. Everybody's there. Everybody's welcome, and it's like you know what it's like. It's like America. It's supposed to be a melting pot, right? Where everyone's welcome. You can be yourself here. If you go to a convention like Slice, that's what you experience. You kind of experience what it should be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. But I think the organizers, we put a lot of effort in making sure that it feels that way.
Yeah.
Because no one wants to go to a con and everyone tabling looks exactly the same. Because then you're just going to be buying the same book in different colors, essentially.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I want to talk about one of the comics that you did, Atonement Bell.
Okay.
That is a very St. Louis comic. You talked about that you liked horror in general. What made you want to do something that has to do with St. Louis as well?
Well, um, it's it's a little difficult to talk about, but basically, I went to a Catholic high school and grade school, which explains a lot. Um, but as I got to know people later on through social media like Facebook and stuff, all these people that I went to school with who all learned ostensibly the same things and heard the same lessons, from the Bible and from this and that, how empathy is important and how kindness is important, um, turned out to be some of the most awful people. And I hate to say that, not all of them, but many of them. Um, and they were the kind of people who were using, and they're the first to push a Bible quote, but they would also talk about immigrants in an awful way, trans people in an awful way. If they weren't, generally speaking, if I'm being totally honest, if they weren't white and into sports, I don't know, but there was a definite certain type of that was like the only thing that was God only likes these people, not these people. You know what I mean? And that it really troubled me. It made me really angry. You know, I've been unfriended by most of them for comments I've made back to them, and that continues actually, even as of last week. But um, so the Atonement Bell, I wanted to write basically about them. So you know, the Atonement Bell is about using religion not as something, and I don't have an issue with religion, at all. So if you're religious, you know, that's great. It really is. Um, but if you use religion as something, you should use religion to be grateful, to express gratefulness. But if you use religion as a weapon, you know, that's where you cherry pick certain things that don't even mean what you think they mean to keep other people down and use it as a weapon to insult people, to limit their civil rights. That that is the worst thing in the world. I mean, that angers me so much. And so writing the Atonement Bell was my way of expressing that. And I think the great thing about the horror genre, for me anyway, is that you could talk about um, serious subjects, things that happen in society, in a way that is almost subversive because I try to write things where if you're just looking for a fun or a scary book or this or that, you could do that. But if you're really paying attention, you'll get a whole different thing, you know. Um, and that's really why I wrote it, you know.
Great.
Thanks.
There's a good reason. Might as well. Okay. Any questions from the students at all? Any questions at all? Yes.
Sure. I can, sure.
Yeah. Give
Um,
us two. Two of your.
oh, you're so gonna regret this. Um, okay. You familiar with this guy from,
Yes.
yeah, this guy here? Okay.
Yeah, the creeper from Minecraft.
Yeah. My son loves Minecraft. My mother-in-law got him this toy for Christmas, and I was like, "What the fuck, man?" Um, it says, "Though it stands erect, the green, great penis monster wears an angry face."
There it is.
I mean, this is, let's see what else. Uh, that one here. Okay, here's a poem I wrote about White Castles.
Oh, yeah.
Save it for the young. No more White Castles for me. Toxic air biscuits. As I like Neil deGrasse Tyson, so I wrote a haiku for him. Cool as Billy D, with your brain and soothing voice. Magic mustache man. I could let me know when I should stop. That's probably enough, right?
I think that's good. We got enough. Yes.
Guys, yeah, it only gets worse. Oh, that's a really good question. So,
Before you answer
oh
though,
yeah,
if you come to our 5th class, you'll know I'm going to be teaching you how to write for comics. So make sure to come to that one for sure. Go ahead.
and you'll probably get better advice. Okay, but so what I do is um, I use just a Word document is what I use, and I do format it a certain way for myself, but I do use a Word document because it's the most immediate way for me to get it from my brain to the page. If it's a screenplay situation, I use Final Draft, and I use that because that's kind of an industry standard to use that. Um, but and that's great because it's super intuitive software, and it keeps getting better with every iteration. But for comics, I really like using Word because it's just the most freeing for me. I know it sounds corny, but that's how I feel about it.
There's also a standard template that you can use on my website. So if you go to ohhastings.com, there's a free comic standard script template. So it'll show you exactly how to do it and why as well. And that's what I'm going to be teaching everyone on the 5th course is how to do that. So yeah, get excited.
That's what I meant to say. You want to go to her site and get the template.
Yeah. All right. One more question. One more question. Anyone? Anyone? Yes. Let's go.
Oh, no, thank you. Oh no. Oh, thank you so much. That's very kind. Thank you.
Mm.
Yeah, I do actually. So I get really, really, and I can feel it inside. I get really, really anxious. I get really, really anxious, and I kind of lose the ability to focus. But my problem would be that even though I was losing the ability to focus on the work, I was trying to force it. You know what I mean? And so you spend like an hour sitting there going over the same sentence. You know what I mean? And I really had to learn to just walk away.
Yeah.
Just walk away because it's not the end of the world if you don't finish your goal for that evening. You know what I mean? It'll be there the next day. So just don't worry about it so much. And as simple as that sounds, it took me a while to learn that, you know, mostly because I'm thick-headed. But I eventually learned it for myself.
Yeah, I mean, one of the notes that I took today was take it easy.
Yeah,
Especially if you're doing a self-published project, a personal project that's just for you, take it easy. There's no time limit. You're here to be creative and to make the work. And if that work takes a couple more hours than you anticipate, that's just because that's what it needs.
yeah. I mean, it's so important to not only be good to yourself, but make sure it's fun for you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're doing it because you want to express things to people, but you also want it to, the activity itself, the actual action of being creative, you want it to be fun, you know?
Yeah. Okay, that's it. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Thank you guys. Thank you so
Yay.
much.